Welcome. I never know how to get started on these, so welcome to Scott Link's Magic Closet Studio. I'm going to cover some ground that I'm very familiar with to get things started, and that would be balloon twisting. So you've clicked on this video. Let me get right to some of the talk shop. This video will have a little bit more of where I'm coming from, and then the rest sequential ones will have just balloon crafting. Anyway, to get started, how did I begin twisting balloon animals? Well, I was a magic demonstrator back in the 80s. Oh, so long ago. And basically, working in a magic shop, I would look over on the shelves on the other side and go, "What is that stuff?" And it was the balloons, where we supplied clowns and stuff that did a lot of balloon twisting. So being around it, I was curious and started learning how. And then I quickly discovered that for the age group that couldn't quite follow a card trick, balloons were the key. You know, that you could entertain from like 3-year-olds to 6-year-olds without any problem. Because honestly, not until 7, 8, 9 do they really start to appreciate real magic, if you know what I mean. Anyway, um, that being said, I quickly learned the basics, and so this video I'll cover some of the strict basics, and then the next sequential videos will cover a little more detail, some more difficult twists. Let's see, I began in the 80s. I used to always say that I learned how to twist balloons from books, but nowadays you can learn them on YouTube. And look at me, I'm teaching balloons on YouTube. Go figure. So, hey guys. Anyway, self-fulfilling prophecy. My niche that I discovered was to be able to do a good variety of popular shapes that kids would ask for, request, and turn them out quickly. Because usually I would do balloons as an add-on to my magic show. So after I did about 20-30 minutes of magic, then I would be taking requests of every kid at the party. Well, when you have every kid at the party waiting for their balloon, you want to be able to do it quick, and here you go, move on to the next one. So I learned quickly that I wasn't doing real detailed balloon sculptures. All of mine that I chose to do were single balloons, so it was a single color, no multicolor, no real extravagant stuff. So that's my niche. Not saying that any other way of doing balloons is better or worse. It's whatever fits you. And what I found was the quick, simple ones that were still cute, recognizable, and were popular was where I found my best material. Anyway, at one time or another, I actually taught balloon twisting as a part like of a after school program or a group learning process. So I'll refer to some of this material too. But to get started, I'll show you what I'm using now. Where is it? There it is. Okay. I've got these menu boards. They happen to fit in, or I made them out of old DVD slim cases. I taped them shut so the kids can't open them, okay? But that gives you a good sticky finger wipe off menu board so they can look at the list of the things I can do. On the back, I would have either another list of like swords as a real popular subcategory, and then deluxe figures if I'm doing a party where the deluxe figures are available. Otherwise, I use these in a way to get, maybe I don't have them here, down below. There they are. Yeah. These are my display models. Let me put those back. These are the ones I use all the time. Now I've got a shorter list that makes it a little bit quicker and easier to read. Uh, that's the one I hand out first before they're overwhelmed by my full list. But what I was going to say is it puts my Venmo and my PayPal squares in their hands or out in the crowd while they're looking at the list to pick out what they're going to do. Got even a larger version here. I've got a couple of these versions that have direct QR squares to my website. So it's like a little advertisement that gets them to go there. Of course, there's advertisement all over this thing. Anyway, those are what I use now to help the crowd or the line of people get a decision in their mind before they actually approach and have to, tell me what they want. So that helps out a lot. Like I say, I get into situations where I've got a line of people. I've got you fall into these carnivals or these situations where every kid there wants to have a balloon, and if you're not working fast enough, you're going to disappoint a lot of people and miss out on a lot of opportunity. Anyway, so let me put these back. So I'll use my short list to kind of get started. Excuse me. Back in the day, just because I could, I would blow them up by mouth. I don't do that anymore. Let me just grab a few here. All right. I still can, but basically some balloons are tougher than others, and when you get tired or whatever, it's like being an athlete. You get out of shape, you can hurt yourself really bad with these. So I don't recommend blowing them up by mouth. Now I'm going to see how difficult this one is just for demonstration purposes. Okay, that right there has not impacted my diaphragm or my pressure of my head or anything, because that little blast is only out of my mouth. That's all I'm doing to get that in there. Let me put that back. You also notice that I tugged on it when I put that blast in there. That gets it started. Without that, it'd be very hard just to power blast and blow this thing up. But with that started, then it's a little bit easier to blow really hard. Now you still want to stretch it as you're blowing, because that does ease the tension. Okay. Again, I no longer blow them up by mouth. I was just doing this for demonstration purposes. When I'm out working, I rely on a stand-up pump that sits on the floor. It's about 2.5 feet high, 3 foot high, and it has a large nozzle. Just one plunge blows up my balloons. But these are just as good, and I'm going to be using this one throughout the rest of the demonstrations. All right, so let me tie this guy off. You'll find that little process of tying the knot is what will wear out your fingertips. Okay, there's a powder, a latex-like powder inside these, and it'll dry out your hands really, really, really bad. Here's another trick of the trade. This is why you're watching my video and not others, because I'm going to give you years of experience. All right. What I use, I don't have it. Let me go get it. It's right over here, because normally I keep it in my pocket wherever I go. I'm destroying my set. Okay. Anyway, it is the old reliable chapstick. Okay. Chapstick is just a simple beeswax, I think. Don't hold me to that. But around my fingertips, calluses, whatnot, and even on the back of my hands, and even in dry conditions, I'll do my arm a little bit. But it's basically a skin balm for any part of your body where you might want to put it. I'm not going there. But you rub this into your fingertips, and it gives it a real good protective coating for balloon twisting. Okay. Now, there is a problem. When you first put it on, your fingers are slippery. You, you're going to have a heck of a time trying to tie a balloon with slippery fingertips. So it does take about five minutes or so to let it dry. And once it dries and really sets, it's almost the perfect tactical enhancement to your fingers. I also use it for doing coin magic, because you got to have good hands, good conditioned hands, to do some sleight of hand with certain objects, especially coin magic. Anyway, so let me kind of rub this in a little bit. And always have a towel. Always bring your towel. All right, where is it? There. All right, back to this guy. Now, of course, just to get the idea of what you're doing, you're creating a pattern of sizes of bubbles as you go down the line, starting with the nozzle end, always twisting that way, because the balloon is going to spread as you eat up, the balloon in the design. I used to teach this by teaching you make all the sections so you visually see it. And that was always good for students. But I'm going to jump right to more advanced ways of doing it. But to give you the idea of what I mean. Now first, what is twisting a balloon? Holding one part stationary, usually the one that has the nozzle is the stationary end, and then the one that's loose or has room to expand will be the end that twists. Now if your balloon is curled like this, okay, or has a bad bend in it, as you're twisting this around, it's having a lot of drag going around in this circle. So it's actually good to have your balloon relatively straight. So then you're pinching both sides of your twist, but one hand is going to rotate. What that does is a pinch in the right spot, rotate, causes a weak spot for it to come together and create that gap. Twist it around about 2 or 3 times, and that's a good twist. Now notice I got to hold on to both sides, because if I let one side go, it's quickly going to unwind. So that becomes the difficulty as you're making multiple bubbles down the row to make your particular design. You still have to hold this end from unwinding. This is my way of doing this, is once I get it twisted around and I've got it, I got to secure this end, and I hold it up next to my body. With the palm of my hand, or heel of my palm, down on this end is where I rest on that end, leaving my fingers the ability to move forward up the balloon to make the next necessary twists. Now I need to undo this and kind of take a look at my proportions, because I need to make a bubble nose, 2 ears, a neck, 2 legs, a body, 2 legs, and a tail bubble. Now as it moves down, it is going to stretch and give me a little bit more room, shortening the tail as we go. But initially I'm looking at it going, okay, how big do I want the head? So the nose portion, the ear portion, the next ear portion. So what I would do to this one, now I gave the full balloon a big double-handed squash. That did push the balloon this way. I'm sorry I didn't show it to you, but it stretched the balloon that way, and it also softened the balloon, because I'm going to start doing multiple twists, and if you don't soften the balloon first, those bubbles are going to be too tight. I'll explain that in supplemental videos. So anyway, I've given the balloon a little softness, so then I begin the twisting. The nose portion, I would hold it up next to my body, move down, and squeeze off an ear portion. By having that anchored, I can move down and make another ear portion about the same size as the first one. So if I hold this up, this is the design that I've created. By folding this over, and then turning these two together. Once I've gone around once, I can let go of it. Now, if you don't let go and you're still holding this in, it'll unwind those. But by letting go, it'll hold itself. Now, that balloon twist is not tied. That is, it can come undone relatively easy. And I'll show you what I do to tie them. I'm trying to illustrate for the camera, so this is a little out of proportion of what I would normally make. I'll go ahead and show you what the difference is. All right, I can unwind it, whoop, and if I let go, everything just kind of unwinds. All right, back to the beginning. Here's the advanced way that I twist now. I'm going to make the twist way over here. That's going to give me the room for a nose portion and one of the ear portions. So I'm like this. Now I fold this over and I'm going to double twist these two. Giving a twist here, I come all the way around and create the same shape, but in a different way. Let's try that again. I'm going to unwind it and let it go. There are little subtleties to every way that you do this. And the biggest is it can cause the different bubbles to be inconsistent. What do I mean? When I did this and folded it over, this bubble has a tendency to lose volume, but this doesn't, because it has nowhere to go. So when I twist this around, what happens, you'll notice one side is weaker than the other side. It may pass, but it's not perfect. Let me resume, or let me go back. Open it all the way back up again. By the way, if you're trying to do this over and over and over again like I am, you will wear out the balloon. They're not made to do that. So at any moment, this may pop and we'll have a little surprise in the video. So now, I do something a little different. I'll separate off what will be the nose and the first ear, but that second ear, I'll go ahead and separate. Now it can't lose pressure. I fold it over and create the first ear by now twisting this together. And again, I'm trying to show the camera more than I am making the balloon. So it should make that bubble more substantial and equal to the other. Those are some more advanced tricks. Yeah, doggy. Anyway, with that in mind, any of those other applications and the way you get the bubbles made doesn't matter. As long as the sequence of sizes comes together in the end. So, you play with your ability. You figure out what works best and what ends up the best. Other keys is watch out for hangnails. You got to keep your nails trimmed because any little sharp, doing some of this will get the balloon. Now, like I said, this twist is not tied. So easily, like I said, if the ears get unwound, your whole balloon's going to come undone. So at this point, you can tie the balloon. But one end has to go through the loop that you made. The loop is the ears. The end is going to be the nose. What I'm doing here is I'm laying this up against the ears, pushing the nozzle into the middle or into the divide. I want to make sure I'm staying on camera. And with my other fingers, I'm rolling the ears. So it's actually going to kind of grab that bubble and push it through. Bonk. Now, those ears can't come undone because it's literally been tied on the inside. All right, there's the doggy head. Now, I want to make this dog, proportionate. So I'm looking at it going, oh, okay, my legs have to be a certain size. So with that, I'm squeezing the balloon as a whole, gives me more room on the end, okay? And realize I'm going to do the same maneuver where I twist off what will be a leg and a small neck portion. But when I fold it up, I'm twisting off the neck and making the next balloon or the next portion the same size as the leg. And there I've made the two front legs. Now, if I were to tie the legs, I can't roll the entire head portion through the legs that way. That ain't gonna happen. But what I can do is take this end, feeding it through. I literally have to spread open these two balloons, get the end, poke it through, and then what I'm doing is I'm holding with this hand, keeping these balloons from unwinding. Because as you draw this balloon through, it's going to want to make these into rollers because of the friction or the, pulling on that. So you got to stop that from happening. Because what will happen is one side or the other will unwind and you will no longer have 2 feet. You'll just have a loop. So I'm holding where those two balloons kind of come together so I can hold both ends. And quickly, because the quicker you do it, the smoother it's going to be with the latex on latex, pulling it all the way through. Of course, it'll invert your doggy's head, but that gives you a good little humorous, nope, it's that way, buddy. There you go. Straighten him out. Now I've made that portion. Looking at the rest of it, I got to end up with a bubble in the tail, or the tail doesn't work, or the tail portion doesn't work. So again, I'm going to stretch. Now this I'll show you. You see the size of the balloon? When I give it that double hand squeeze, whoop, the balloon stretches. I almost got double the amount of size there. Okay? That tells me the real length of what I'm working with. Because as soon as you start actually twisting it, it's going to be spreading anyway. So giving that double-handed squeeze shows you kind of where it's going to end up. Okay, so there, and it softens the balloon, making it easier to twist. So here again, I need a body portion, a leg portion, and a second leg portion. But wait a minute, that leaves this huge tail. Well, that ain't going to work. So I got to think, where is the tail, little bubble, a leg, and a leg? Okay. So right about here is going to be between the two legs. Folding it over now. Does that give about I'm looking at a little tail section. And then if I cut it off right about there, does that make the body big enough? I think so. I think it'll work. Now here's the tricky thing. When I start separating this bubble off, it's going to want to spread that. Here's the trick. If you fold it over, keep it from spreading. Or actually, I'm sorry, because you got to fold it over, but keep it out of the way of where you're going to twist it off. Because I'm going to reach in here. I'm stopping the balloon from spreading. Okay. And I'm twisting off a little bubble tail. And about the spot for a good body. Straighten him up. You see, he's proportionate. Now again, it's got to be that tail part that's going through here if you want to tie your balloons closed. Otherwise, these back legs can just come unwound. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this up like that. So now when I put the tail balloon through the legs, the puppy will end up in the in the right direction. So taking the tail, I'm pinching the uninflated part, okay, and folding it over, so when I roll it, it won't just stretch the balloon. I want to keep that long, skinny, unblown up part for the tail. So as I'm rolling it, I fold it so it won't inflate, as I'm putting a lot of pressure on that little portion to feed it through the back legs. Ta-da! There we have Puppy Dog 101. Puppy Dog basically is several other figures. If you think about it, it's all proportion. If I made the legs small and left the middle longer, it's of course a dachshund. The poodle dog has one variation. It's the head and the tail. So I want to move right along and get that in this video. Stretch your balloon first, feed it on the nozzle, and you got to learn how much balloon or how much tail to leave, on the end. That lets you know how big the balloon is overall. And again, all of this just takes practice to be able to kind of judge what size it is, how far to blow it up, and all of that. Okay. Now for my poodly dog, or poodly, sometimes it's hard to say that. For the head, instead of making all the separate bubbles to make those elements, I'm just going to fold it over. There again, let's give it a good softening squeeze, double-handed soft squeeze. Pardon me. Folding it over and getting it there. Now what I'm doing is I'm creating a loop on this side and just cutting off, a good nose portion. Okay, so right about there. All right, looking at it, that looks good. Okay, and you'll see why in a moment. Let me quickly make the rest of him. Now this is probably at speed. All right, like I say, I usually have a line waiting. So. Boom. All right, caught up. The head's on backwards. We kind of did the little joke about, straightening out his head with this one. Well, I get to this point when I'm making the poodle and go and do the same. Uh-oh, her head's on backwards. Now, what I'm going to do is I did not tie this portion, okay? And I'm not really. What I'm going to do, though, is like the tying. I'm going to take the nose, line it up with the loop, just like I did the double bubbles, and do that rotation, but only pop out the top, okay, the very end. Now don't go too far, because it's that, what would the word be? It's kind of holding the front side and the back side of that portion as it's set in place, if you kind of get the idea. Okay, and of course the latex on latex and the high pressure holds it kind of in place. But you do it like that with the nose kind of sticking up, and I say that gives it that hairdo, okay, being the poodly dog. And then the detail on detail. Now this is a more advanced move, but what you do is you cut off a little portion of the tail, give it a real good stretch, okay? You're making that portion of the tail on the very tip just a lot looser than the rest of the tail. Now, if I were to squeeze this bubble portion, it's just going to spread the tail like blowing up the balloon. The trick is I'm keeping the balloon from spreading out by pinching, but still letting air through. I'm not pinching it closed, just pinching it tight, okay, or small. So now this bubble down below has to be squeezed all at once, like a bulb. Okay? And as you do, you'll feel the weak part expand at the top. I hope you caught that. Okay, I'll let go and let it go back down. Oh, let me squeeze it back. So again, let me kind of get it up here. As I'm squeezing the bottom, it's going to go to the weak spot that you made in the balloon. Now you only want to do a little bit because you don't want that bubble bigger than that bubble. So once you get a little bit there, I spread it all the way up to the very end. Whoops, let me get it again. And then this is another little trick. I just kind of beat it up a little bit. Okay, I'm holding it. So when I'm hitting it, not real hard, it's really stretching out that whole, bulb spot in the balloon. Okay, then you can get an actual bubble to stay up there on the end of the tail, which is adorable. The only drawback to that is that little bubble is insatiable to little kids. And then they got rid of the bubble. So it usually pays off to teach the adults how to put it back. Or also what I do is after I've fixed it like 3 or 4 times, I'll say, now leave it alone. It should stay up there okay. All right. I think I've overworked this one. It seems to be leaking. Anyway, that is the Poodly dog, a little variation of the puppy dog. Like I was saying, let me grab another one. There's a few other, body shapes that are easily converted from the basic dog. I'll go ahead and make this one real quick. By the way, I'm a new YouTuber. I don't have a following or much of a subscription or, any of that jazz. So at the end of the video, I would appreciate if you've seen about 3 or 4 of my videos and you really appreciate the material, I've got a Venmo square at the end of my video, or it could be somewhere down below. I haven't quite figured all that out yet. Throw me a tip. That's how I make most of my money anyway. It's a one-on-one, but this way I get to reach a lot more people. So if you appreciate what I do, just throw me a tip. What's a tip? It's whatever you think I deserve. I appreciate you. Anyway, back to this. A giraffe is just proportionate doggy, okay? I'm going to kind of go through this more at speed, just to kind of get it done. Then I've made the head, but this time I'm going to stretch out the neck portion and the legs. All right. Now it's a little hard to tell the neck from the leg until you get 2 legs side by side. Aha. Again, tying it in knots as I go, leaving me just enough, giving that double squeeze. Cut it off right about there. Fold it over. Yep, that'll work. Get the tail in the middle, and of course, straightening him out. Now, usually, again, the front legs, I end up longer than my back legs, but I can take the body bubble and kind of tuck it down, and then it actually kind of gives it that, that more of that proportion of a giraffe anyway. So I really like the way my giraffe turns out. About the 3rd easiest figure is a giraffe. Okay, along the simple line that gets you a lot of mileage, okay, has got to be the pirate sword. Now, there's going to be a supplemental video, I think it's the 4th one on my schedule, that's going to be all about swords and balloon weaponry. These kids nowadays. Anyway, you blow it practically all the way up. You want to give a little room again because you are going to put several bubbles in this balloon, so you don't want it too tight. I always, let a little air out because I'm going right into the balloon twisting. The first is that loop, but it's a little bit bigger than the poodle dog, because of what the loop's going to be used for. So again, I make the loop rather, not real big, but, and you'll get the idea of how big it needs to be. So there I've just kind of tied that off. And now I'm just going to make 4 consecutive bubbles. Okay, so 1. Now this is a good example of where the end of my balloon is slightly curved. What that does is every time I'm twisting this around, it's got to, do all of that movement. So if you were to get that balloon straighter, it has less drag and spins around a lot easier. Experience. Anyway, again, I'm anchoring it down on my body as I move up. I move it up my forearm. Okay, so I can move up because 4 balloons in a row, is quite a reach. 1, 2, 3. And again, you got to squeeze it a little bit to make it a little bit softer as you go. And that's going to eat up that little end that I had left on there. It's totally gone now. Without letting go, I got to get that in through the loop I just made. All right, kind of straighten it up. And that makes, a very decorative, good-looking, quick, easy pirate sword. Now, there are a couple of swords that are quicker. And again, there'll be another video for balloon weaponry. But this one is a good looking and it's quick enough. There are several balloon sword designs where the kid is not holding on to a solid, balloon shaft or balloon, you know what I'm saying, that main part. And what that does is it makes the handle very flimsy. So it doesn't play well. If it's not stiff and rigid, it doesn't play like a sword should play. So most of my balloons have the actual balloon portion is the same balloon portion as the long stick part or the blade part of the balloon. That way it's actually playable. Some other balloon swords look better, but they're not playable. And if you know kids, they want to play with these things. Anyway, we'll do more about balloon swords and all of that, but that's another quick and easy one. Another quick and easy one I want to go ahead and show. Let's see, I'll do it with this one. Now, I will resort to blowing them up by mouth when it's this particular figure, because like I said in the very beginning, it's really only the mouth blast. I make a big because I think I'm going to be blowing it up anyway. But really, that's all I'm doing. All right, there. Now, with that, just in my mouth, I'm not blowing at all. I can actually do that a couple of times to pump it up a little bit more. That's just out of my mouth. I'm not using any diaphragm whatsoever, and I can get at least that much pretty quick. So the mouse, again, is relatively easy. You don't want very much because it's only four portions. As I do it, it's going to stretch down. So the first thing is to make a nose bubble a little bit smaller than the overall diameter of the balloon. So it just kind of makes a cuter bubble, a little cherry size little bubble. And then 2 ears. Now, of course, I'm running down, so I want to make one ear a little bit bigger than the nose, and the second ear a little bit bigger than the nose. I could have used a little bit more air in this. Usually the body's a little bit bigger, but you get the idea. Again, I've turned around and I've made a mouse. I'm pushing the nose through the center so it ties the whole thing so it just can't come undone real easy. And there I have the simplest of figures, well, besides a worm, the mouse. Now, in another another video that I'm going to make, I'm going to be talking about my presentations, because every single figure that I make has a particular presentation, and it's all about selling what you just made for the kid. It also gives a presentation or a performance for everyone else that is watching, because the key to a good balloon maker is everybody enjoys their interaction with the kid that's getting the balloon. That's the key. Anyway, to get back to the little mouse, the way that you sell the mouse is you show that it does a trick. The other balloons don't do a trick. This one actually does a trick. Teaching the kids how to make a big circle with their fingers is the first part, because you put the tail through that hole and let him sit there in the hole. You got to keep it a big round hole. Can't be a tight little hole. It's got to be as big as you possibly can make it. Now with kids, they never run into any problems, but I was teaching an adult this and their hands were too big and the mouse kept slipping right through their hands because their hands were so big. I've got small hands, so I got hands more like kids. So anyway, the idea is that he's too chubby to actually fit through the hole that way. I teach the kids to get the very tip at the very bottom and pull it straight down. I show them that if you do it sideways, you just pop your hand. You don't want to do that. If you pull it straight, though, it'll go straight through that hole you made. And you make him jump. I have gotten a lot of mileage out of that little mouse. Once you teach kids the trick, they're going to do it. They're going to want to play with it. So again, a big circle, setting it in there, getting the very bottom and pulling it down and letting go. And boy, that thing can really soar, in a vaulted or high ceiling area. Now, of course, it is a balloon, so I don't recommend doing that outdoors where, the grass or sharp concrete or bricks can get to it real easy. He's an indoor mouse, and I usually make a point about only jumping indoors where he's a little safer. But anyway, that's the mouse. Let's see, what else was I going to do? I think that's a good start. I may add a few more added to this, but I think that's a good start to get started. The next few supplemental, I'm going to continue down my list. Okay. And this being the first one, had a little bit more introduction of where I'm coming from and all that. So the next few ones on just balloons, we'll get right to the meat of the matter and try to teach you a few more things. I appreciate you clicking on the Venmo square. I appreciate you subscribing or liking or any of that jazz. I'm just now getting started filming, so I hope to build a good audience, and I hope that you appreciate what I'm putting out there. Again, stop by to visit Scott's Magic Closet Studio, and I hope to have more material soon. Thank you. Are you done? I gotta pee really bad. All right.